I would like to welcome you to an amazing man that I was blessed to meet last year at the Hippocrates Wellness. They used to be called Institute. They don't call themselves Institute anymore, but that's the place where people heal from cancer. I had read about the woman, well, I shouldn't say that, right? That's where they go with the intention to heal. And I met Andy there, Andy Roman, who is the father of Kaya Roman, a well-known producer of films and the upcoming film, The Frequency,
The secret
The
of
Secret
everything.
of Everything. I mean, that's going to be a boom buster. It's
I,
amazing. I've seen the previews,
I
but
saw I saw the whole thing already.
you did. Oh my God.
Yes, it's fantastic.
Well, because Dawn is in there, I already got to see the whole thing too, and it's
Oh,
phenomenal. It's well, like as Dawn said, let's watch an hour and a half, and I'm like going, really? It's nighttime, and he's like, let's just do it. We watched it through. I was at the edge of my seat. I'm like going this. So your daughter is phenomenal. So you're the dad of a phenomenal daughter. But then I got to
I
read
know.
your book, Get Well, The Power of Authenticity to Heal. And then I clicked with you. I mean, I clicked with you right away. As we were, yes, please hold that up. Get Real, Get Well. Everybody, get that book. It is full of short stories. And I'm going to ask you in a minute. So prepare, please, Andy, to give
Yeah.
us a fabulous highlighted story that shows the power of authenticity to help us heal. Both you and I come from the background of body-centered psychotherapy. You had, with another partner, Mr. Chatham, the psychology department of the Hippocrates Wellness.
Yes, we're part of the psychological and emotional support services there.
And I remember when somebody did a PowerPoint presentation when I was there for the filming of all the authors. Greg Braden was there, all the big names are there.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was cool. Then somebody was giving the overview history of the Wellness, Hippocrates Wellness Center, I want to say. And they said, and I think you piped in there, it's when the psychology was added into the healing process, that's when really things took off. Eating raw
Well,
was a heavy component, is. And then tell me more. Tell me how eating raw and psychology help people become
well,
well.
the Hippocrates has this T-shirt, and on this slogan, on the T-shirt, there's a slogan that says, "It's not the food in your life, it's the life in your food." So they're emphasizing the importance of living foods. But
Right?
I made a T-shirt that says, "It's not the food you eat, it's getting to what's eating you."
Oh, I love that. It's getting at what is eating you. You're absolutely so. To get started and to get everybody to buy this book, Get Real, Get Well by Andy Roman, tell us one of your potent stories. I think they're all
There,
potent and they're one of those coffee table books you can open, read a story, and go, oh my God, and check in and heal yourself. Go ahead.
well, thank you. Just offhand, I'm just loving your enthusiasm. Even I want to buy my book now. No, there was a man there who was, his family left him there. He was a Vietnam War veteran who had been sick and really a mess emotionally ever since the war. And I was really surprised when he showed up at the Healing Circle, which is like a group therapy. And he confessed to us all that he had committed war crimes in Vietnam. He was the machine gunner in a helicopter that was doing raids over the villages, and his orders were to shoot anything that moves. And he confessed that he had killed oxen and chickens and people, and he said, "I murdered children." And then he started crying. And he then said, "I'm a monster. I don't even deserve to get well."
Mm.
And I knew from the moment that I heard him say that he could eat green food until he turned green. If something didn't happen internally, he wouldn't get over that hurdle. He wouldn't let himself get well. And just at that moment, when he said, "I'm a monster, I don't deserve to get well," everybody in the group was looking at me like, "Andy, do something for this poor man." And before I even had a chance to do anything, there was a woman across the room from him who stood up She was an Asian woman, and she said, I am Vietnamese. I was born in a village just like you described. My family, my parents told me about all of my relatives that were murdered by the Americans. And she used the word murdered. And again, everybody was looking at me. Andy, stop this before it gets out of hand. She walked across the room and stood in front of him. There he was. His head was down. He was crying. There was snot coming out of his nose. He was falling apart. I'm a monster. And she looked down at him and she said, Get up. And she said it just like that. It wasn't kindly. I thought, oh my God, she's going to hit him. And then I thought, this could be the most therapeutic thing for him. He's been beating himself up all these years. Maybe he needs to be punched by a Vietnamese person. And so, again, everybody in the room was looking at me like, Andy, stop this now. And then she said, Get up. And so he got up, and I'm pretty sure that he actually anticipated that she was going to hit him, but he was bracing himself for it. Then she said, Look at me. Look at me, because he was looking down. And so then he looked up. He was still crying. There was still snot coming out of his nose. And everybody, the whole room, we were all holding our breath. And she reached over her hands, put her hands on his shoulders. She looked him deep in the eye and she said, I forgive you. And he lost it. He started sobbing, just started crying. And she took him and he cried on her shoulder. And there wasn't a dry eye in the whole room. And at a certain point, he lifted his head up off of her shoulder, and there was a band of snot from his nostril to her shirt. And he saw it, and she saw it. We all saw it. It was potentially a very embarrassing, weird moment. And what he said was, I am so sorry. And then she said, I just forgave you for genocide. I think I can handle a little snot. And we all started laughing. It was just the funniest, most poignant, sweet-hearted thing ever. But he didn't start laughing. He was still crying. And so they embraced each other, and I followed him on Facebook for a year. And he kept reporting that his health was improving. And finally, after about a year, he announced that he was getting married. And then he dropped off of Facebook or something. But the story doesn't end there. 15 years later, I'm sitting in the living room of a woman who is teaching a class that I'm taking for CEU, continuing education credits for one of my licenses. And down the stairs comes her husband, who was this man. And we recognized each other and we embraced each other. And he told me that that was the absolute turning point in his physical healing. That for 30 years before that, he was unable to make any progress whatsoever. But it was the forgiveness of this woman that he was enabled to, if she can forgive me, then maybe God can forgive me and I can forgive myself and I can actually have a happy life and be well. And his wellness followed that.
Wow. So that's a very potent story to show us that if we can get to the core issue of what is eating at us and somehow get it transformed, then we probably start to blossom in area and heal in ways that we didn't think was possible before.
Yes, the body follows what is in the heart and the mind of a person.
Now that's a
And he,
very dramatic story to support that. Now, how can we do that at home? We don't maybe have the person walk up from the past or accidentally be the person who whatever we're mad at or how can we get in touch even with what we're feeling? Because tell you the truth, I have, for example, I in seminars, on the other hand, let's say I say, what would be some of your three major juicy goals? And we're at the beginning of the year now. You really want, and somebody raises his hand and says, I want €1 million, it's in Germany.
yeah,
Okay, you get up. So now imagine yourself already arriving at the destination. You have it already. How do you feel? Well, There's jubilance, there's I can do it. And then I say, dive deeper. What are the thoughts and feelings? What are the consequences now? And then comes the feeling of like, oh, maybe all my friends are only going to like me because I have money. Oh, now I have
Yeah.
to pay up anytime. Every time I go out for dinner, people expect me to pay the bill. And then the burden or now I'm bigger than my father ever was. So, these are then thoughts and they come in as feelings, as sensations. We want something and we think it's positive, but then we have so much stuff inside that keeps us from getting there in the first place. That's why we are here. So we have to deal with that. Now, let's
And I
say
think,
in sickness. Now, you tell me, how do people get in touch? Another maybe story or event where
well,
people
first of all,
get in touch with their feeling.
in some ways, I mean, sometimes some people don't even let themselves stretch into letting themselves want what they want, and they actually don't really know what they want.
Right.
And so they need coaching at that end of the field, I guess you could say. I call that point B.
Right. But let's just go to your point A, where people are guided
Oh,
into
my God.
they are sick, maybe they are feeling they need healing. How does one get in touch with deeper layers, deeper truths?
Well, it's different for different people, but I'd say body sensation is a big one for most people. So I will do all kinds of exercises to help people just tune into what are you aware of in your body right now? It's a very simple question,
Okay, let's
and I
do
will
an
do that.
exercise. Let's just do that right
Oh,
now with us right
all
here
right.
live.
Okay.
You tell us about something, like guide us in, and then we follow.
All right. So for your listeners and viewers, just close your eyes for a minute and let yourself tune in right now as you're hearing the sound of my voice. What are you actually aware of? You can feel the weight of your body on the chair or wherever you are. But what are the sensations, the physical sensations in terms of temperature, pressure? And as you sink into that, really begin to notice what's the feeling in your heart. What's your heart's experience? See if there's a connection between the body sensation and the feelings. What's the emotion? See if any imagery comes up, something from the past or even an imagination, because those are very closely linked to feelings and emotions. And that's where you are. This is what's real for you. And it's important to acknowledge and identify it. And now that you know, see if you can put a word, see if you can put a word to the feeling. Feelings are really very simple. There's joy, there's sorrow, there's anger, there's disgust, sadness. Oh, I said sorrow already. So it's just very, very simple. And if you could put it in a simple category, which category would it be in? And this is a way to just start identifying and making the movement from body sensation to actually identifying the feelings. Some people are there already, and you can open your eyes now. Some people are there already. They know how to identify their feelings. I'm really feeling resentment. I'm pissed. I'm really sad. I'm grieving. That sort of a thing. There are many people who don't have that vocabulary yet. They don't know how to identify their body sensations with the feelings that they're actually having.
And I would say, even though, and for example, myself, I am
Yeah.
excellent at feeling my sensations. I've trained in it for decades. Since 1988, I've been practicing
Uh-huh.
this work since 84. I trained in it. So, but every time that I am even guided or I take a moment out to ask myself that deeper question pertaining to a specific thing, a question, a quest, an issue, a thought, even an awareness in the moment. Where am I feeling? What am I feeling? It guides me deeper. And it takes a moment because we're busy in our frontal lobe, in our logical mind most often. But to get into our body sensed limbic brain, whole brain thinking, feeling takes a shift. And our society doesn't make us do that, doesn't train us. So it's really good to have books like yours with little stories to go inward and then listen to what that message is. It's a core message. And then what do we do with that core message, Andy?
I think it's also accessible through current reality. When I listen to people's story, I don't listen just to this linear story of it. I listen to what has the charge because I have found that whatever carries the charge ends up in charge. And so if somebody's really pissed at their spouse or they feel intimidated at work, those are the feelings that I go with. And I think it's like gathering the little fragments of the feelings. You know, some of them are the emotional fragments, some of them are the body sensation fragments, and the other aspect of it is what we tell ourselves. That's the high brain fragment. And when all of these, see, we split our feelings into these fragments because we're protecting ourselves from pain. Pain is central to my whole the way I work. Freud said we operate on the pleasure principle, but I think we operate way more on the avoidance of pain principle. So if something helps us avoid pain and gives us pleasure, we're talking the perfect addictive storm there. We'll repeat that kind of stuff
Eat
quite a
chocolate
bit.
and drink wine and watch TV and not listen to the grumbling, upset stomach that's still mad at the boss or whatever happened. I hear
Yes.
you. So
Yeah.
let's just say we narrowed that down to our awareness, to our feeling. We know we feel that grumbling sensation in our belly. By the way, both I think you've written children's books about this as well, right? This is not just
Uh,
for adults.
yes, yes. I mean, I think, let's face it, children tend to be more in touch with their feelings because they're not so programmed and they're not so much in their heads.
Mhm.
Children are little embodied people.
Right.
They
So you
there's no
teach
energy crisis. They have a lot of energy naturally.
Right. So you teach that technique to adults and children as well, right?
Well, I actually in my practice I don't work with children that often, but when I do, I love it.
But
You
you
know,
have,
I'll
right.
have
I
them
have same
draw
with me.
pictures and we tell stories together. That's a real good way to elicit what carries the charge for children. I will
Okay.
tell I'll say let's tell a story together and I will include all kinds of challenges in the story. And then a storm came and the little girl was alone in the woods. And then I'll turn it over to the little girl patient, client, and then she'll make up something. I'll see, is she scared? Is she brave? Is she, that kind of thing. It's really fun working with kids.
Okay. So now let's narrow it down. We've found that sensation. Maybe all of you watching this, you still have that, whatever. It's usually in one of our central channels in our chakra energy centers where you feel something. So now, next, take us to the next step, Andy.
The next step is to see if what level of a charge is there to be able to identify. And I'll use simple stuff like on a scale of 1 to 10, how charged is this sensation for you? So I'm bringing in the elements in so that they can learn to identify their own body sensations and their own reality. How charged is this? And then if they say, well, right now it's at a 4, and then I'll say, well, take a deep breath and turn it up to a 7. And then magically they seem to be more in touch with it because they're able to actually turn up the juice.
That's right.
It's
They go deeper into their perceived emotions. I agree with it. And we can turn on the drama screen or reduce it, which is a technique of how to not constantly live in that perception of drama. But sometimes
yeah.
we actually need to take a look regularly. And so now that they've blown it up, or we feel it stronger, or we are more in touch with it, what do we do next?
This may sound weird, but for certain traumas, it's important to feel it fully and actually recognize at a somatic level that it is not killing me. Because we split off from traumatic feelings as a way to not die. So if we could prove that we can feel it and not die, it actually goes to a whole other center in the brain. It goes to the hippocampus, which is the timeline. It's not triggering the amygdala response anymore. I worked with a guest at Hippocrates who was at ground zero at 9/11. He was there when the tower collapsed, and he was chased down the street by this toxic wind and debris, and it knocked him over, and it would have buried him, but he was able to crawl underneath a car, and this little pocket of oxygen that was underneath the car saved his life. And so he was so freaked out, so traumatized, so scared that he didn't have a chance to process those. For survival's sake, he had to split off from his feelings and just, click into fight or flight and crawl under the car and survive. And so he developed classical PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, where he was having flashbacks and he wasn't able to sleep and he was easily triggered. If it got too windy in Florida, he started getting anxious and didn't know why until he finally connected that. So what I did with him, I had him, I taught him a technique of how to, I mean, to put it simply, how to find his happy place. And I had him anchor that in with like touching his fingertips or something. And so then I would have him relive the trauma. And bit by bit, he let himself go into it more and more. But when his anxiety got so deregulated or dysregulated, I would have him go to his happy place and ultimately teach him that he was able to step out of it, which he was able to do because he had already split off from it. But I had him go into it more and more over time until the terror was 100%. He was in my office, but he was under that car. He was being chased by that toxic cloud of, stuff. And he was shaking, he was sweating, he was getting a headache. It was a very, very somatic experience for him until and he said, "Can I go to my happy place now?" I said, "No, not yet, not yet." And it was fascinating to me. Have you ever been in a hurricane?
Nope.
I've been
Nope.
in a hurricane. I was in a place where the eye of the hurricane went right over the place. So at one moment, the wind was going at 200 miles an hour, and then suddenly the wind completely stopped where the center of the hurricane, and then when it passed over the other end of the hurricane, and the
Yes.
wind was going 200 miles an hour in the other direction. Very similarly, there was a certain point where his heightened anxiety and fear and terror just stopped. He found this he called it an eerie calm. And
Mhm.
I didn't have him go to his happy place yet because I wanted him to just I knew that was going to happen. The body finds when it reaches a certain critical mass, it just puts it into the past. It's not repressing it anymore. It's just putting it into some new area. It's like, oh, I don't need to protect myself from this anymore, so I don't need to keep it present. I can actually put it into the past.
Okay,
And
well, you've had decades of experience, and we're taking that word from you. There are different approaches to how to handle intense emotions, PSDs. Um, one of the techniques that I worked with a client is just simply watching a finger go from left to right while imagining that horror experience, and at about a 1 second interval. And while imagining it, it's almost like the REM state in the dream time. We go with our eyes left and right. The brain sort of erases, that's how I imagine it, windshield wiper like, our attachment to the memory and puts it in as a memory. So reduces the emotional attachment. And you just took him into it, had him breathe, 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 and realize, I'm still alive. I'm still alive. I'm still alive. Oh, okay. So this is just a
right,
fiction
and
or a
and
memory.
it wasn't a conscious, he wasn't talking himself out of
Right,
his feeling.
right.
And I have a little concern about EMDR. I believe that when in REM sleep,
Mm-mm,
we reorganize our traumas, and then when we wake up, we're not so freaked out.
mm.
That doesn't actually, in my opinion, doesn't make the trauma imprint go away. I don't think it erases it. I think it sort of
Softens the
it
blow.
it
Hmm.
sublimates it. And
Well,
it's definitely a great tool
yeah,
because if somebody is in constant fight or flight freak out, that's no way to live. So
right.
this brings great relief, especially for war veterans. That's been
Exactly. That's
the
where they've
most
used it a
effective.
lot. Right. I've used it with somebody who was beyond control, where any body-centered psychotherapy, go in touch with your feeling. What does that feeling really want? What is it doing? What does it really want? You know, the techniques that I use. Uh, and nothing was working. And that's when I just, Dr. Bob Beck, a genius who's worked with the government and taught the CIA remote viewing and all those things and worked with extra low frequency research. He is the one who mentioned it to us. I used it on that person, and it was like, from then on, that person's life changed. That reaction no longer dominated his life. And I mean, he, 40 years later, I know, has been able to manage that emotion completely and became actually quite the, the opposite blossoming version of it. So whether or not, I mean, we can,
The
I
good
think what
news
I love
is,
about your work is, yeah, the good news is it can soften the blow.
it,
But let's go deeper with, how do we take the
well, wait, I want to
transformation?
finish my sentence. The
Mm,
good news is that it isn't really one size fits all. I could, I'm open to and I can see EMDR being the thing for somebody.
yeah.
And
And like EFT, some people, put different, I have never gotten into it. Other people swear by it. Like you said, there is a hat for
right,
everybody.
right.
Tell me, when a person goes and gets in touch and really becomes aware, there was a big charge, and now I can see the charge without charge. I mean, that's quite a jump alone. Do you think people can do this in their living room by themselves?
No, not initially. I think it's possible to learn how to do that oneself. But basically, we are so close to our trauma that my experience is people need help. I need help initially finding my own style and how I integrate. And again, it isn't one size fits all.
Right. So
It's
it takes a perceptive person also to notice, where is the charge. That's where a therapist comes in, whether it's online or a real life person.
yes. And
Uh,
part of the reason that this 9/11 survivor was able to feel it in my office was because he felt safe with me, and there was a recognition. I can feel it here, and I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to jump off a building. Andy's going to keep me safe. I'm here to heal. All that adult brain stuff really helped him integrate it. It set the framework for his integrative experience.
how can people work with you? Do you do online work, or do you just work in person at the
Uh,
Hippocrates Wellness in Florida?
I do Zoom. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So first step to get your book, Get Well, Get Real, Get Well. And I want to ask you one more step. What happens once a person gets through that eye of the needle sensation? What
Yeah.
happens in your description, or what do people do next? How do they, yeah, step out of it? Or
Very often, up until that point, a person has actually built an identity around their trauma. And so once the traumatic feeling level is healed, they're left with, who am I without that? And it actually, the next phase of therapy is really re-education and a rediscovery. Who am I without that trauma? That's when I start doing the stretching into, what do you really want in your life? What you were describing is just brilliant, because that's what we do naturally whenever we're manifesting anything. It starts with desire. And so sometimes these people have been so traumatized, their feelings and what they want have never mattered. And
exactly.
so it's like starting over for somebody. They're they're reborn, or not to get too weird
Right.
about it, but they're starting over. And so the follow-up sessions have to do with, well, how do you want to be? What do you want to be? I liken it to an artist sitting in front of a blank canvas.
Yeah.
How do they know what to paint? Well, the answer to that is you just make it up. What do you want to paint? And you can start with emotion, you can start with a color, you can start with an idea. It doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to know exactly what you want, as long as you can start with a direction. You don't have to have a map, you start with a compass kind of idea. So it's
Absolutely. So
it's
first of
different
all,
for different
healing
people.
because you're coming from the awareness of protecting yourself against something. So usually we're occupied with the defense system always, like eating chocolate, watching
Yes.
TV, or whatever that might be. And then um, we go into, oh, I survived that. I am here. I am me. Now let me breathe. What do I feel like? And then the life force
Yeah.
takes over. Interesting approaches, Andy. I love what you did. I love all your stories. I mean, I love reading. You know what I love most? I could go to my living room from coming through my workday, and open the book and just could read a story in 10 minutes and felt like, first of all, I read something today that furthered my awareness. Very good, because that's on my to-do list. Second of all, it really helped me understand something deeper. And I love your absolute, how do I want to say it, realness. Andy, I experience you as a person who doesn't, or when we met and shared, you're like who you are. It's like you're not defending yourself, you just are. And I think you emanate that in your sessions to your clients. It's like you don't
Yeah.
need to be somebody.
I tell you, sometimes I over reveal, but I find that because I sort of can't help myself, I like it and I do it. But really, people do get a sense of, oh, he's being real. He's admitting that he's not perfect and he doesn't know everything and that he did some stupid things. And that loosens the whole vibe.
You know what? It's so funny. Before we started our interview, I said, well, Andy, let's just jump in with a clear story that really is demonstrative of the kind of
Oh
work.
man, you're not going to go there, are you?
Yes, I am. Now, because you love it.
No.
You love it. You don't. I hear you saying, do it, do it. Am I right?
I know, I am
Okay.
saying to it.
All right, all right, all right. Good. I said, well, let's not start with, when I was a child, I learned how to tie my shoelace. And I've never ever said that to anybody in my life. I've never taken somebody to that memory. And then you said, oh my God, that was my trauma as a child. And could you self-reveal a little bit about that? Because
Yes, if I
that's,
have to. Yes.
yes, please.
Listen, I think you're very intuitive. Like you said, you've never said that to anybody, but it is something that's really, really relevant to me and my personal development. My mother was a very doting helicopter mother, that's what they call them these days, who did everything for me. So I learned that I'm incompetent. She would even ask me, we would go shopping, which shirt do you want? And I'd say, I didn't care. I was a kid. I'd say that one. She said, no, you like this one better. It's like, I don't even know what I want. That's what I learned from her.
Right.
And so she tied my shoes, literally tied my shoes until I was about 8 years old or 8 or 9 years old. I would be at school and I didn't know how to tie my own shoes. I would walk around with floppy shoelaces.
So how did that affect your life and how did you turn it around?
Well, I think what I said to you was I think that's one reason I've become a therapist because I needed help to become my own person, where I have skills, I'm competent, I know how to take care of myself. I have feelings that are my own. I didn't even know I had feelings until I was 18. And I participated in a marathon encounter group that I didn't know I was getting into. And
It's so you're and don't we all have those experiences in life? Something where it didn't work out well, where it was our burden, it was our nemesis, turned us into the person that we are now. It stimulated us to move out of and make lemonade out of lemons, so to speak, right? So
yeah,
you became aware of emotions. You became an expert. You are also able to know how humbling it is not to know something and to be in the world and help other people to become empowered.
yes, because I know what it feels like to be disempowered and to be enabled. And you know what? All that cultivated in me was laziness, you know. And I hate to admit it, but I've been in some relationships with women where I was happy when they were mothering me and doing everything for me. And I'm happy to report that I've outgrown
I
most
am
most
happy
of
to
that.
hear that. That is awesome news. I know we wanted to do a 35, 40-minute interview. It's beyond that. Tell me, um, I would say everybody who's heard this and is interested to find out more, I would say buy your book, Get Real, Get Well. Of course, I will put a link to the Hippocrates Wellness Center down below. I think it's just called Hippocrates Wellness. People can go and eat raw and get real with their emotions with you there, right? In a
Yes, yes.
intern. I mean, it is awesome. When I went to did my body-centered psychotherapy training, I did body-centered and body training. I heard about the Hippocrates, the Anne Wigmore, who started all of that. And I just, it's always stayed with me. And of course, I've taken that into my life and try to eat half raw. But that sometimes it takes an environment where everybody comes together, does it for 3 weeks or whatever. What's the minimum time people spend there or can come there?
Um, there's a lot of people who come for a week, but
Mm,
I would say that it's best to come for 2 or 3 weeks.
okay.
And people
And
who have come for a week will often return and say, I'm returning because one week wasn't enough for me to get the full benefit. Don't get me wrong, people benefit a lot from a week. Healing, especially emotional healing, is is not a matter of time. It's much more a matter of timing. When a person's ready, they make dramatic changes very quickly. When a person's not ready, you can have a team of brilliant therapists and they're not going to budge.
right.
So, what
Beautiful,
do you
beautiful. So when you actually hear an inner nudge that says, go to that, get pampered, eat raw. I mean, I ate that at buffet. It was phenomenal. I mean, my God, the variety of raw foods just got my eyes spinning, and you could eat there all day long. But then you have the beautiful natural environment. You're in Florida, and you have you and your team. So I think it's awesome. I'm so glad I met you. I am so
Thank
glad
you.
I have your book in my
Likewise.
life. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah. And especially with people now who are old enough, like you and me, we're old enough, we're in that same region of life, who've done their work for 40 years, who can say, this really works. And of course, I will be putting links down below if you are working on wanting to create your goals. For example, I have a fabulous course that puts body-centered therapy techniques in the course, because I believe that half the reason people don't get their goals or wishes is because there are emotions that are in the way that we need to honor, listen to. And I have a very easy, based on Dr. Vern Wolf's work. I don't know if you ever heard about him, holodynamics.
I've heard of holodynamics, but I didn't remember the name.
I
Uh,
would recommend if you read my book, Wisdom of the Dolphins, you get an insight into his work and how this works and makes miracles. I'll put the link below. I really highly recommend looking into that, and maybe I can meet with you and just share with you some of the highlights and techniques, not in this interview, at another time. I
and
love
I
having
want to
met you.
say,
Mm,
I want to say one more thing about, I'm coattailing on something you said about when we're in a defense system, defending oneself isn't stupid. It's a survival thing. It only gets stupid when it interferes with becoming something,
beautiful.
So that's why I believe the sequence generally is do your inner healing, then do your stretching into what you want. You can do them simultaneously, of course. And because why not?
And it depends on how big the healing is, right?
Yes. Well, that's inspiring. It
Yep,
doesn't have to, even if I've been carrying a backpack full of stones for 40 years, it doesn't have to take another 40 to just shrug it down,
right.
right?
So I am very happy. We will provide every listener with the link of how to get your book, how to come to the Hippocrates Wellness Center, and anything else that might pertain to that. And I love that you're all
Okay.
here, and we wish you all the best. Andy, a nice goodbye
Thank you.
message. I will
Joy
put it
to,
over to
joy
you.
to be with you.